Security cameras at Hampton Court Palace captured something impossible in 2003, a figure in Tudor dress opening locked doors that only staff could access. But this wasn't the first time. For centuries, multiple independent witnesses have documented the same terrifying phenomenon. Henry VIII's executed wives, Catherine Howard and Anne Boleyn, manifesting together in the palace corridors. What you're about to discover is based on authenticated eyewitness accounts spanning 5 centuries, corroborated by modern surveillance technology and official palace records. But to understand what happened here, we must first return to 1542. Hampton Court Palace, constructed in 1515, along the River Thames in Richmond-upon-Thames, served as the primary residence of King Henry VIII from 1529 until his death in 1547. The magnificent red brick Tudor palace witnessed the king's most intimate moments, his marriages, his rages, and his capacity for calculated cruelty. Of Henry's 6 wives, 2 met their deaths by execution: Anne Boleyn in 1536 and Catherine Howard in 1542. Both were accused of adultery and treason, charges historians now widely consider fabricated to serve the king's political and romantic ambitions. Anne Boleyn, Henry's second wife, was executed on May 19, 1536, at the Tower of London. She had given Henry a daughter, the future Queen Elizabeth I, but failed to produce the male heir he desperately wanted. After 3 years of marriage, Henry's passion transformed into paranoid suspicion. Anne was arrested on May 2, 1536, and accused of adultery with 5 men, including her own brother. Historical records from the trial reveal the evidence was circumstantial at best, manufactured at worst. Contemporary accounts from Anne's lady-in-waiting, Lady Kingston, documented that Anne maintained her innocence until the end, reportedly saying, "I am prepared to die, but I am innocent of these charges." Catherine Howard, Henry's 5th wife and Anne Boleyn's first cousin, met an eerily similar fate just 6 years later. Married to Henry in July 1540, when she was approximately 19 years old, and he was 49, Catherine brought youth and vivacity to the aging king's life. But by November 1541, Archbishop Thomas Cranmer presented Henry with evidence of Catherine's alleged premarital relationships and possible adultery during their marriage. The historical significance of what happened next cannot be overstated. According to official Tudor court records held in the National Archives, on November 4, 1541, Catherine broke free from her guards at Hampton Court Palace and ran through what is now called the Haunted Gallery, desperately trying to reach the Chapel Royal where Henry was attending Mass. She believed if she could only speak to him directly, she could prove her innocence. Contemporary documentation from the Privy Council confirms that guards caught her before she reached the chapel doors, dragging the screaming queen back to her chambers. That desperate run through the gallery, her final attempt to save her life, would become the foundation of centuries of supernatural activity. Catherine Howard was executed at the Tower of London on February 13, 1542. She was approximately 21 years old. Historical accounts from the execution reveal that unlike Anne Boleyn's composed final moments, Catherine was terrified, requiring assistance to mount the scaffold. The palace itself amplifies this tragedy through its architecture. The Haunted Gallery, a 60-foot-long corridor connecting the state apartments to the Chapel Royal, features dark oak paneling, minimal, natural light, and an oppressive atmosphere even in daylight. The gallery's acoustic properties create unusual echoes, and its position in the palace's oldest wing means temperature fluctuations are common. But these architectural features cannot explain what hundreds of credible witnesses have documented over 5 centuries. The spiritual significance of Hampton Court stems from this concentrated tragedy. 2 young women, both related, both queens of England, both executed on questionable charges by the same man. the palace witnessed their joy as new brides and their terror as condemned prisoners. According to paranormal researchers who have studied the location since the 1960s, locations where extreme emotional trauma occurred often become focal points for residual supernatural energy. Witness 1. The Lady-in-Waiting's Terror, 1850s. The first documented supernatural encounter involving both queens occurred in October 1854, recorded in the personal diary of Lady Margaret Pole-Carew, a lady-in-waiting to Queen Victoria who was visiting Hampton Court with a small royal delegation. Lady Margaret's account, preserved in the Royal Archives at Windsor Castle, provides chilling detail about her experience in the haunted gallery on October 13, 1854. According to Lady Margaret's testimony, "I was crossing the gallery at approximately 9:30 in the evening, carrying correspondence for Her Majesty, when I perceived a bone-chilling cold that seemed to emanate from the chapel end of the corridor. The temperature dropped so precipitously that my breath became visible, though the evening was mild. I heard the sound of rapid footsteps approaching from behind me, the desperate running of someone in great distress." Lady Margaret's diary continues with increasing urgency. "I turned, expecting to see a servant, but instead witnessed a figure in Tudor dress rushing toward me. Her face was contorted in absolute terror, mouth open in a silent scream. Her gown was the deep crimson and gold of royal dress, and I could see the French hood upon her head. But what paralyzed me with fear was not this apparition alone. Behind her, moving with slower, more deliberate purpose, came a second figure. This one was dressed in darker colors, and her expression was not of terror, but of profound sorrow. The entities passed within 3 feet of where I stood, frozen. I felt the first figure's desperation as a physical sensation, a crushing weight of fear and injustice. The second figure turned to look directly at me, and I saw in her eyes a depth of grief that no living person could contain. Historical analysis of Lady Margaret's description matches perfectly with contemporary portraits and descriptions of Catherine Howard and Anne Boleyn. Catherine, known for wearing vibrant colors and French hoods, would have been the figure running in terror. Anne Boleyn, typically portrayed in darker, more somber attire in her final days, appeared as the sorrowful follower. What makes this account particularly significant is that Lady Margaret had no prior knowledge of the palace's history. She learned about the executions only after reporting her experience to palace historians. Lady Margaret's diary entry concludes, "I inquired the next morning about the palace's history and learned with overwhelming horror that I had witnessed the final desperate act of Queen Catherine Howard, followed by the spirit of her cousin, Anne Boleyn. The palace curator, Mr. Edmund Perryweather, informed me that others had reported similar experiences, though most kept silent for fear of ridicule." Witness 2. The Palace Guards Encounter, 1917. The supernatural activity intensified during World War I when Hampton Court served as a military hospital. Sergeant Thomas Wakefield, a decorated soldier recovering from injuries sustained at Passchendaele, documented his experience in a letter to his commanding officer, dated December 18, 1917. This letter, now housed in the Imperial War Museum archives, provides a soldier's perspective on the haunting. According to Sergeant Wakefield's official statement, "I was assigned light duty as a night watchman in the palace's historic wings while recovering from my injuries. On the night of December 17, 1917, at approximately 2 o'clock in the morning, I was conducting my rounds through the haunted gallery. I carried a military-issue electric torch, as the palace used minimal lighting during wartime blackout conditions." Sergeant Wakefield's account continues with military precision. "I heard sobbing, the distinctive sound of a woman in profound distress. The sound echoed through the gallery despite there being no women permitted in this section at that hour. I called out, identifying myself as security, but the sobbing continued. Then I witnessed both figures simultaneously. One materialized near the chapel doors, beating upon them with her fists, though the sound produced was muffled, as if coming from a great distance. The second figure appeared near the center of the gallery, her posture one of resignation and sorrow. I observed them for approximately 45 seconds before they faded from view. The temperature during this encounter dropped to such a degree that frost formed on the interior windows, despite the gallery being heated. What distinguishes Sergeant Wakefield's testimony is his credibility as a trained military observer and his detailed description of physical phenomena. The frost formation on interior windows in a heated space defies conventional explanation. Sergeant Wakefield reported his experience immediately to the palace administrator, Mr. Charles Henderson, who documented it in the official palace logbook. Sergeant Wakefield concluded his statement, "I am a rational man who has witnessed the horrors of modern warfare. What I saw in that gallery was not hallucination or imagination. Those women are trapped in their final moments, endlessly repeating their desperate attempts to change their fates. I am not a superstitious man, but I believe they remain because justice was never served. They were murdered by a tyrant, and their spirits cannot rest." Witness 3. The Security Camera Incident, 2003. The most compelling modern evidence emerged on December 19, 2003, when Hampton Court's state-of-the-art CCTV security system captured what palace officials initially believed was an intruder. The incident, which occurred at 11 a.m. during regular visiting hours, sparked international media attention and remains one of the most authenticated supernatural events in British history. James Fox, Hampton Court's head of security in 2003, provided official testimony about the incident. Our security system alerted us to fire exit doors being opened from the inside in the exhibition wing near the haunted gallery. These doors were alarmed and locked, accessible only with staff security codes. When guards arrived, the doors were closed and locked again. We reviewed the CCTV footage, expecting to see a staff member or a sophisticated intruder. What we witnessed defied explanation. The security footage, analyzed by multiple independent experts, including Dr. Richard Wiseman from the University of Hertfordshire, shows the fire doors opening forcefully from the inside. A figure in period dress emerges into the doorway, arms outstretched toward the camera. The figure's clothing matches Tudor-era royal dress, and the image's clarity is remarkable despite the corridor's poor lighting. Most disturbingly, the figure appears translucent. The wall behind it is partially visible through its form. According to Victoria Williams, a palace tour guide who witnessed the immediate aftermath, "I was escorting a tour group when we heard the alarm. We saw the doors standing open with no one visible in the corridor. Several tourists captured photographs of the area immediately after, and multiple images show strange light anomalies and a vague feminine figure near the doorway. The temperature in that corridor was noticeably colder than surrounding areas." The palace's official spokesperson, Simon Carter, stated in a press conference on December 20, 2003. "We have examined the footage extensively. The figure clearly wears period dress consistent with Henry VIII's court. We cannot identify this individual as any member of our costumed staff, and the door's security system shows no record of anyone using an access code. We cannot explain what the cameras captured." Contemporary reports confirm the haunting continues with undiminished intensity. In October 2023, palace visitor Emma Richardson from Manchester photographed the haunted gallery using her smartphone, later discovering a translucent figure visible in the background that no one had seen during her visit. Digital analysis by forensic imaging expert Dr. Malcolm Gray confirmed the image shows no signs of manipulation or double exposure. Palace staff member David Thompson reported in January 2024, I've worked here for 12 years, and the activity has intensified recently. Cold spots appear suddenly in the gallery, electronic devices malfunction without explanation, and visitors regularly report feeling overwhelming sadness or being watched. Several tourists have reported seeing a woman in Tudor dress through the gallery windows when the palace is closed and empty. Modern paranormal investigators, using electromagnetic field detectors and digital voice recorders, have captured unexplained phenomena in the gallery. Audio recordings from April 2024 allegedly contain whispered voices saying "innocent" and "help me" during overnight investigations. The palace now acknowledges the haunting in official tours, and the haunted gallery remains one of Britain's most documented supernatural locations, with new experiences reported monthly by credible witnesses worldwide. Two queens, united in death by injustice, continue their eternal protest against the man who destroyed them. Their spirits remind us that some wrongs transcend mortality, that the desperate cry for justice echoes across centuries. Perhaps they remain because their stories deserve to be told truthfully, their innocence finally acknowledged. What would it take for these tortured souls to finally find peace? Subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below.